Hey folks, we're going to continue our illustration here for the upcoming book cover. Reclaimant by Joseph Vargas, also known as Ukulele Bard. So give me a give me a second here to check my signals. Make sure we're coming in clear. I'll go through my intro spiel, and then we'll put in 100 plus minutes worth of Reclaimant artwork. So, checking my signal here real quick. Mic check, 1, 2, 3. Checking my signal here real quick. Mic check. Sounds pretty solid to me. Excellent. Let's see. I just posted that I am live on Twitter. If you want to get notification when I'm live in the future, you can follow me on Twitter at Phil Kearney. Otherwise, you can follow me here on YouTube with a like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to help push the channel out to more people to see what we got going on. I'm an illustrator. Hey, I create role-playing games. I publish them online. I illustrate books for various clientele, typically interior artwork or book covers for games and books. You can see the work that I do. Role-playing games is typically 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. There's a slew of links in the description down below if you're interested in checking out any of that content. Otherwise, I'm going to just go ahead and just punch out here to folks across Discord that I'm live and running, and then we'll get back into this. So, what you're seeing here is Yggdrasil descending from heaven to land upon Earth. This is a supernatural versus man during Industrial Revolution. Bob's your uncle. So we're good to go here. Click, beep, beep. Push that to the back. Camera comes forward. Like, subscribe, bell icon, resolved. And all right, book cover. So let's get the trade dress out of the way. Blip. So let's see. Here's the tree that we've been working on in the past sessions. It is done now. As you can see, we got the radiant green effect here with the purple highlights that when you pull back blends into a general haze or radiance, and then we got the highlights of that radiance on our clouds back here to frame it and separate the supernatural space in the sky from the land. So the next step we're going to resolve is deet. Let's see, how is this thing structured? All right, so we're gonna build this like a Bob Ross painting. We got ocean here, rough here. Let's see. Ocean is where we're at right now, so I'm going to let's see if there's some references that Joseph had provided for us that are going to work for distant mountain type stuff. And it's a dark, stormy sky. I think we can probably start here. That looks pretty good. And that redishness should probably be a good contrast. Let's see. Yggdrasil's fine. Sky is good. Yggdrasil's good. We're working on Laotian. Yeah, let's do that. Let's just extend that out a little bit. I can smudge into the environment. It's using a medium strength, was like 30%, 70% smudge brush here in Photoshop to push this water out to the edges of the canvas. Generally, the way that Bob does it is you fade this in like that. We'll put down the blue we'll do the sky first, and then bleed the sky down into the ground, and cover it with water. If there's going to be any kind of water, you want to get the field of water down the body of water in place first, because you can paint over that with ground, and we don't have to worry about ground yet. So we're going to work from the back of the page forward. So here in the water, we're going to work our way from the back forward. It's a larger brush. I'm just going to smudge it in as we move forward. And this simulated darkness to lightness here is part of the mass of the water that accumulates in a deep body. And as you move forward, it lightens because generally atmospheric disturbance, atmospheric perspective grays out the horizon line, but we want to keep it dark so it's more of a reflection off of the sky. And by fading out from dark to light forward, when we get to it, it'll help punch up the contrast of the foreground against the background. So you have this natural value resting spot, this neutral space in here that helps relax the eye as you transition from one element to the next. So one of our guiding principles here, learned from Bob's 25 some odd seasons worth of painting landscapes and oceans and stuff. So most of his techniques we've learned to produce here in Photoshop with various brush techniques, which we'll be discussing as they come up here. So if you're interested in being a digital landscape artist, maybe there's some value here for you. Consider liking and subscribing, blah, blah, blah. Plug, 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 plug. Yeah, that feels pretty smooth. I like that. I know there's some lumpage going on, but I'm okay with it. I'm just gonna smooth this all in there. That's pretty good. We'll want to create a reflection now for Yggdrasil, which we started with here already, and that's actually a pretty decent reflection we got going. I could be super literal. Duplicate that. Merge it down. Get rid of the lock. Push it up here. Free transform. Flip vertical. Blah! And then we just push this down so it's a reflection. Best way to make a reflection is to reflect the image that you're planning on reflecting into the ground, or the surface that you're planning on reflecting. So that's what we're doing currently. I don't know if this is going to hang or not, but it's where we're at right now. Doesn't look horrible. The way that we would do this is put a layer mask onto it. So when you use a layer mask, you can delete things, you can paint over to make them disappear, but they don't actually disappear at all. They just get lost behind a screen. So that's what we're currently playing with. I'm going to up my brush capacity here on the screen itself so I can. Again, this will all be covered up with the foreground like that. So what I really want to do is going with this approach. I want to drop in. I want to fade it out so it's not so prominent. It would not be so prominent in the reflection at this scale. Which is ultimately why this may just end up being a better reflection in general. But for now, I'm just going to use that as a guiding principle for this. This is just a simple smudge brush. It's my cloud smudge brush that you saw me working with the cloud line here last session. don't think that's honestly any better than what we already got going on here. I kind of like just how it is as it is. So I'm going to just duplicate this for now. Drop this brush down to a very small size with a very high up here at the top of the page. You can see the strength percent. That's the amount of pixels, like 100% would move all pixels like this. See, the pixels just go on forever when I grab it. But if I were to drop this down to say 80% and I grab some pixels, see, they only drag a little bit. So this is ultimately how I, oops, if I'm too rough with it though, it's a gentle, see, it'll create that little dot effect. That is actually a remnant of the brush style. So let's go to our brush settings. We can get rid of spacing. Oh, that's not the right answer. Here we go. See, if I take the exterior water and I push it into the reflection, it creates a ripple, waves of water, right? And the crest of the wave is above the shadow of the dark. So you have that. These are looking pretty sketchy. Pulling the highlight from the mask towards the sides of the page is a wave highlight that's catching the light and then reflecting it towards you. Taking a streak like this from the borders into the piece creates that wave. And now you've got the lower portion of the crest that can't reflect light back at you because it's reflecting it down into the water, thus perpetuating the reflection on the water, but it doesn't shoot any light up at you. So I'm going to have to be delicate with this high level of smudge so that it doesn't create those little foot streaks that you saw. You know what? I'm not doing this right. I could do this different. And the way I'm going to do it different is... No, get out of here. I'm going to... Yeah, I'm going to duplicate the layer. There. Now we're going... No, beat it. Me. Yeah, we're good. All right. Back at it. Grab this. What we're going to end up doing is a motion blur. Here, I'll show you guys here in a few minutes when I get to it. But I want to drop these waves in here. And we're going to use a motion blur filter to smooth out the lines, to get rid of the chop. Get rid of some of this line. Let's work that into the canvas a little bit. Get rid of the lininess of it. There. Do that. By using this wiggle, it kind of self-reinforces the water that we're working here. Like that. Yeah, this is much better than what I had going on with that reflection thing. This is more fun. So we're just going to do this instead. Oh, yeah, wrong layer, Kearney. There we go. Right. Back on point. Where? There you go. Yo. Boom. Bop bop. Boodle bop bop. One of the things about this brush in particular is if I want to reduce the amount of that choppiness that you got going on there, I can reduce that by making sure the brush is turned this way instead of this way. If I turn it this way, it gets choppy. If I turn it this way, it gets smoother. So I have to make sure I have my brush tilted the right way to help complement the results that we're trying to produce. It's a really cool thing about having brushes that aren't radially symmetrical, that have variance like up and down versus side to side, having different sort of effects. It allows you to blend and make more use of the brush than just its individual purpose. I just want to work most of this line sketchiness into the canvas so that it doesn't look like sketchy lines anymore. Instead, just becomes light information. Got some stuff out here I can smudge in. I should have a timer going. Thanks. You're right. It's 9:40. I still got an hour. Both. Nice fresh coffee. That breaks in like that. I want to be mindful that this is really far away on the horizon line, so I want to keep this. I want to keep these wave bumps down to a minimum size. Layering. I can take this, I can filter, I can blur filter, I can motion blur. See. do this blur. Let's go back to filter, blur, immersion blur. There. Just a touch. This one here, we can select filter, blur, also motion blur. See the little chalk marks that we had going through there just disappeared. They just smoothed out. Like that. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Subtle. I like it. I'm going to drop that down a bit there. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with it for now. We're going to see how the rest of the environment shapes up around it. But that has a good slickening sort of effect, which is all we're really looking for right now. Excuse me. Still getting over that travel sickness. So we have our ocean secured at this point. Let's go back to our reference to find that that mountain range. That's probably a good color to go with. We have the horizon line that's providing a much lighter highlight. So looking at our sketch again here, we have the landmass that comes in. See, this land breaking in here is going to work really nicely with that reflection. So we have some landmass here, some landmass that's working here. This is the rough sketch, but it's not necessarily something I'm committed to. Excuse me for a second. All right, back. I'm gonna freshen my coffee cup here real quick, and then we'll start working on some mountain ranges and working that color language into the canvas as rough ground as we move forward in the piece towards the camera. We're going to start with I'm going to start with a mountain range here. So I'm going to switch my brush over to my mountain tools. Where's my chisel? There it is. Mountain chisel. All right, this is the basic. Look, it looks naturally like a mountain, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can add a little bit of a mountain range into the piece here. There. Let's do something like something like that. Another mass here. Just work it in like that. Clean up the tips a bit. what we want to do is obscure where these roots go in Yggdrasil further towards the edge of the page. So by dropping in some convenient land masses like this, we can conceal its location while still reinforcing. Like this language here is informing us that this landmass is in front of the tree. So when we build up these mountains here, it's going to forcing perspective of having Yggdrasil be behind the mountain range will provide affirmation of just how massive this tree really is. We establish that with forced perspective, which it forces you to put the tree behind the mountain range because of image placement hierarchy on the horizon. Let's work this into the ground here like this, and it starts to build a cool little frame for that reflection. So here we're just gonna pull this down from the mountains into the piece. I want to keep a clean top line here, but the bottom here, I'm fading away from the tree into the canvas towards the border to help open up that reflective space, this reflective space that we have here, help reinforce its presence. Normally in a landscape painting like this, I would want the mountains to dominate the scenery in the background to break the sky from the ground more cleanly. But this is such a distant shot of Yggdrasil itself that the tree obviously is what's supposed to be dominating the canvas. So it does. So we're building the composition correctly. But as we build this down here, we want to have this push into the water space so we can create, like we have in our sketch here. You can see, get the land. I don't have to follow this water line exactly at all, but it gives us a frame of reference for like where we're going with the piece. What was that? Yeah, we don't need that anymore. I need a trash. Where's my trash folder? There it is. Trash. Don't need that anymore. That can get pushed down into the trash. That can get pushed down into trash. So we have our rough sketch here and our greenage and our terrain. But as we move further and further forward in the piece, we can get rid of more and more of the rough sketch that we had, and to the point where all we have is final image process. And we don't need the sketch folder, and we throw that away as well in the end. So now we're just again working color into the canvas here to gives ourselves a base. There we go. Work that into the canvas a bit. From here on in, with the lighting established with the tree, this is pretty much just a normal landscape painting. So I can normally crack these out in a matter of hours. smudge this in a little bit. Work this into the canvas. That's starting to feel just about right. All right. Cool. So that's establishing our base for our land. So I'm going to switch this to my switch this to my chisel. Push it up to 80% strength, so it's very strong. So I can come into here and clean up this line art. Like that. Push the canvas around a little bit. Get some lumps going. Get some lumpiness going up in here. Hey, someone's showing up. Hey, Jared, how you doing? Can't stick around, but you have a great art style. Good luck. Hey, thank you. We'll be working on this. We work on this book cover on Saturday mornings like this. Monday through Friday mornings, I do Space Fantasy, Spelljammer from 5th edition, ship art, planets, character art for a book that we've been developing. Thursday and Monday night, we do cartography for an Eberron adventure that we will be publishing. And but yeah, Saturday's my general commission stream. So, well met. Thanks for being here, man. Like, subscribe, yada yada. Definitely come back and check out the stream because we're going to be putting in. We're going to start working Bob Ross style mountain ranges. So this chisel that we're using. All these techniques that I'm using in this landscape with the clouds from last session, and the mountain range here, and all the land filling that we're going to be doing. It's all Bob Ross, but digital. So I spent a year basically getting myself certified in the Bob Ross style of art, but on a digital canvas instead of on. Because I don't see any color, so I can't actually mix colors on an actual physical palette. I can't do the color mixing properly. So the only way I can paint in color is digitally. So I spent the year figuring out how to duplicate the stippling, smudging, knife work that Bob does on a normal canvas, and just all these tools that we're using for these different brushes are the things that I developed to be able to duplicate that effect here in digital. So Bob had a really cool episode. I watched Bob Ross when I was a little kid, when the episodes were actually airing for the first time on public service PBS. And one of the episodes was he was answering letters, and one of them was a colorblind person who was like, I love your work. I don't see any color. How can I do this as well? And the way that Bob answered it was, you can use my techniques. You don't need color. And then he spent the rest of the episode creating his normal landscape that he would do, but all he used was black and white. So he was just using values to be able to create the landscape. But that wasn't. I was 5 years old when I was watching this. I already knew that I couldn't see color. And they had explained it to me. So the harder technical details kind of went over my head because I was just a toddler. But I got the gist of it, and I knew I was missing things. So when I'd play Legos in the family room while the TV was on at like 6:30 in the morning on Saturday when Bob would air on PBS. So when he's having this episode and he's answering that question, he's doing that work, I already knew, as that wasn't what he asked. What the write-in was, the letter was asking, how am I supposed to be able to mix colors and be able to do what you're doing, like actually do what you're doing. And that was beyond Bob's ability to, he's not Jesus. He just has his temperament. So it's he can't provide that for the writer, but that stuck with me forever. And I don't know if that's what was the underlying drive that got me into wanting to paint in color or not, but it was one of my D&D friends, Larry, God bless you, Larry. One day he was just like, have you ever actually tried painting in color? I'm like, no, of course not. He's like, well, why don't you figure it out? And it was just so innocently poignant. It was like, well, maybe, okay, let's figure it out. And that's when I found Photoshop. This is like I want to say it was like 1997. And Photoshop was still a pretty new thing. So I didn't even really know what it was. Just like, why don't you figure it out? So and he just left it at that. No clues, no nothing. He didn't even know. He's just like, you'll never succeed if you don't try. That's all he knew. And God bless you, Larry. Totally right. So that's how I found Photoshop. I actually played with Corel Draw, GIMP, and Photoshop, but I just liked the color tools. Since I didn't have any color myself, I needed really good color tools inside of the program that I could lean on and trust. And Photoshop was at that time mostly a color correction device for photographs, but it was only with I think tablets. I think tablets started getting created in 1996. So I grabbed a tablet, a very, very simple, rough tablet. It was garbage. It wasn't anything like these Wacoms yet. But it was good enough. It was good enough. And that's what got me started. I used to be terrified that someone would find out that I don't see in color, because then they would start questioning my ability and like, would they want to commission me or not if I'm deficient like this, right? But I kept at it, and I've gotten to the point that I'm really good at color referencing off of photographs, like we did in our reference images above earlier in the show, grabbing colors. And after watching God knows how many hours on YouTube of different artists explaining color theory and stuff, it really became evident that most of the professional artists, what they struggle with most is contrast, is the value, is the light and darks of the page, because it's the mixing of light and dark on the page is what really makes an image pop. And so most people with color vision use color as a ways to cheat contrast, because they're looking at the contrast of one color to another, like red versus blue has a strong tint being color, has a strong tint contrast, but doesn't necessarily have a high value or black and white contrast. So unwittingly, I was blessed with the only thing I have is contrast. So as I started to continue, putting in my 10,000 plus hours worth of painting just to get good at techniques in general, my color theory improved to the point where I recognized that these, concept artists and comic book artists and stuff, their main struggle was something that I by default was good at, which was picking up on contrast. So without realizing, when I began the endeavor, I actually have incredible tools to be able to be successful in creating great compositions. I just have to have resources that I can trust that the contrast that I choose has good color mix. So like we got this very greenish bluish sort of effect in the clouds up here to reflect the green that we have in the branches. But we can look at our color palette up here. It leans blue here, leans bluish green here as we get into the horizon, and then pop, it turns red. So I know that there's a massive tint difference between these two presences. Like I can see over here in the up right hand corner, the RGB scale, how it flips like that, right? That's a strong, when I see things like that, I know that the color signature is massive for y'all. So, my job was to create, again, good value change, so you can see that transition easily, and then just the color becomes almost an afterthought. Yeah, no kidding, right? So anyway, I'm yammering because that's what I do. if you haven't been here, I don't know if you've been around or not. Honestly, there's a slew of us that kind of kick around here, but that's my basic mountain range there, the line of it. So then let's get into the here's the references that Joseph, my client, had provided for me. Don't see any real snow effects, but if it's a Bob Ross painting, you got to have snow effects. So I'm going to go online. I'm going to go across the net and fetch a color reference that I want. So we're going to go red mountain range. I'll probably get something like the Rockies or something like that. Nice. Yellowstone National Park happens to be the Rockies. Let's copy that image. Go back to our references here. Bloop. Check our colors. I asked for red, sir. And this is decidedly... Well, I can use that, though. Nope, that's not going to have enough contrast. So that's not the image that I want. Let's see what else we got in here. Red Mountains. Ironically titled. Let's see. Let's check these. Nope, still blueing. Ah, there's a dip. Nope, blueing. Nope. I asked for images, sir. Thank you. Burf. How about this? Oh, that's just pencils and shit. Get out of here. Get out of my life. Let's go to... No, don't want snowy landscape mountains. Let's go back to... Fine. No, here's the dumb one. No. Open image in a new tab. Copy, paste. How are these? Decidedly. I do like that though. There we go. That's some good shading going on there. I like that. So let's let's go with this. Let's go with that. See where this takes us. I'm going to create this as a new group called Mountains. Base. All right, so we're going to use our chisel tool here. Super simple stuff. I love this shit. This is how it starts. We just take our chisel and we work it along the edge here towards the tree. And there's uniformity in this stuff, obviously, but that's going to go away, and we're not going to have snow line any lower than here. I'm going to take our eraser and we can cut into that a little bit to get rid of the little flanges that stick out. Smooth that down a little bit. That just to work the edge. Cool. And grab that, push it up here to ride the actual edge of the mountain line. And here. Grab that. Since it's not actual brushes like Bob uses, there's a little bit of extra steps like this that we have to do just to make sure everything comes out cleanly. That becomes our edge. So the next thing we can do is grab our mountain chalk brush Where are you? There you are. Perfect. First thing we're going to do is grab a really high strength, 70%, and just tug at this a little bit. To get rid of the duplicaty look of the brush. And we'll take the same brush that we just used with a low 20% opacity eraser and just tap at it a little bit to get rid of the digitaliness of it. Before we start working the next piece of it. We'll create a new layer. We're going to go with the same brush. We're going to here and here. And go with a really small brush. We're going to just 100% opacity, so we got a full color layer here. We're just going to tap this in like that a little bit. I'm going to use the other brush as well. We're just trying to create a little bit of texture language here real quick before we go stab at this thing a little bit more. I'm going to randomly tap in some eraser bits, and then randomly tap in some more of this chisel here. And we're going to take that same chisel brush here, and if I do this correctly, I might have to try this a few times, but I'm going to go up to a 90% strength and just chunk and clot this a little bit, just doing a little jitter, like here's the brush stroke, right? And then, so what I'm doing here is I'm doing a little tap jitter sort of thing, like this, so that I can keep some of that language in there, but break it up a little bit, like that. That's the goal. So that's where we're at right now. And then I can occasionally take an eraser here with 100% strength, so I can punch a hole through it like that. And then I can tap away at its base a little bit. This takes a little bit longer than what Bob does because he takes his brush, right, and he just whispers it across. Like like a smudge tool here, he would just like whisper it across. But we don't have the ability to whisper like that because there's no, like if I was using Corel Draw, not Corel Draw, Corel Paint, there's actual medium that has a three-dimensional space to it in Corel. So if I use a very, very light touch, pressure sensitivity, that would recognize that it ignores the color information at the bottom. I'm going to merge these down. It would ignore, it would recognize the depth of the paint. So if I did a whispery light touch, it would only grab the pixel information at the top of the paint mound. It would be able to accomplish what Bob has, but I don't like Corel's color tools, so I can't use that. But they actually have really, really good tools. So it's worth, if you are an artist and you're interested in this sort of stuff, it's worth your time checking out different software programs to see what sort of benefits it has that's kept them in the market. Like, why haven't they gone out of business? They're offering things that are value that Photoshop doesn't have. And it might not just be like what is that comic book? Can't remember the name of it offhand. Studio Clip, thank you. Good program, cheap, has a lot of the same basic like cell coloring options that you can accomplish with Photoshop very easily. Good program. If you're specifically looking at like comic book art, I wouldn't necessarily use it for like advanced landscape work. But if you're a cell shader, then Studio Clip Art is like a really, really great option. It's very affordable. So it has specialization and cost to its advantage. Corel Paint, its advantage in the market is medium duplication. It can simulate different medium, but that doesn't... Once I figure out how to use brush techniques, don't really need that. I'm taking this brush, this smudge brush, and I dropped it down to a 40%. So that as I'm pulling here at the bottom of the mountain, as Bob would, it becomes more and more faded out. I can still hit the eraser here to break up the texture here. But when you back out, see, it looks, it's a really good looking mountain range. It does the effect pretty easily. It's just a little bit of smudge work, some eraser, and good texture in the brush. I have to curate the edge of it to make sure it stays clean. And now towards the bottom of the mountain, I lift up. It's like Bob talks about. You lift up. I'm going to use the tooth side of the brush here to lift up, to dig in some more, just some more texture-y break up here. Now I'm tapping and smudging a little bit with the eraser at a low setting. Just to try to work that in a little bit again. There. But most importantly, I want to make sure that the color of the mountain gets covered by the mountain range. So I'm going to grab this and a very, very small brush here. Make sure that we're doing okay. Like that. Just want to keep my edges clean. Oh, thanks for the warning. Mountain. There you go. Oh, eye bugs. So let's do the same thing over here, roughly. I'll work this down into the canvas here like that. Strength, chop, 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 chop. Just create a little bit of texture and then push it in. Chop, chop. There. Very good. Very, very good. I'm happy with that. I can smudge that upward. Again, lifting from the base into the lighting. I can erase that down like that. Pull it back in. Push it back up. Clean along that line. Nice. On the edge there like that. And I can use that other brush here, my razor, my mountain razor, to add in some different type of texturing to create some variety in shape. See, it has a different signature to it. That's the one I want there, like that. There. You can pull that down. Good. Come back in here and no real rules. It's just a matter of getting an idea of, like, there's just how the tools work. I mean, there's rules about how the physics of the tools work, but beyond that, the texture itself, like however you want to like present it, there's no end to how many nooks and ridges and deadfalls can be on a mountain like this. So any kind of little pox that you have going on inside here, that's all good, as long as you're just keeping the edge of the snow line beyond the color of the base mountain rock. It's the only thing that's important. There. So let me pull back. Again, it creates nice little breaks. And so what we'll do is we'll take a new layer and we're going to use the shadow color, and we're going to do the same thing down this edge like this. Do the exact same thing. Pull this down like that. And we can start breaking up its texture. By having this layer underneath this layer, we can stack the color information so that the shadows of the underlayer start mixing with the blank dark shadow spots that we already established in the piece. So we can create these neat little this neat little foreground, like little, thank you timer, these little step effects as you go along as it bounces around. Hey, what's up, Hornetico? Little bloop. See, you pull back, it looks pretty damn good. Again, you got to be aware of what's the resolution of the image that you're working with, so that you aren't trying to. So you can use the perspective, the viewing, calibrate the image to work with the level of resolution you're expecting the audience to interact with the image. What does that mean? Like if the full cover here is like this, or even like this, most of this color information that we're adding in here right now is going to get lost. But as PDFs, we can zoom in a lot and it still looks really good. So you can get to about here is when it starts to really start to break down of like the brush strokes, like seeing what we're actually doing. But this is a 300% zoom in. Like most likely, you're going to be content once we start adding the topography in. We're probably going to be content here, like around what, 70, 75%. Here's 100%. It still looks good at 100% scale. So it's a cheap, easy way to be able to create mountain range results like this. Again, I'm going to tap that in. And we'll grab and we can fade it into this valley here where everything kind of gets darker and smudged out. Angle this brush at different ways to create these like little lines like this, like the way that mountains do. They create these folds, and there's multiple folds that stack up along to create these ridges that make these bounce effects. So we can create a hardline ridge across the top here, and then we can pull all that color information down like this, and then we can cut away at it a little bit with our brush to break it up some. There. Over here we can do the same. But mostly it's just a matter of practice. Aesthetic, like what looks good aesthetically is basically what you're really shooting for. You can do that, but I don't want to have it too highlighted. I just want to create a little bit of a little pop here and there of light to make its way over the ridge. Here is a good place to have a cool little highlight like that. I can just pull that information down with an easy smudge and then break off the bottom of it with an eraser tool. Like that. Not bad. Not bad. So we keep it up. This is what we're doing for now. And pixel tapping, tap, 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 and randomizing, like just shaking up the direction that it's facing at any given time. So it creates these like little lumpy, bumpy hill effects like that. And again, we smudge it in. Tap, 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 erase. There. It's just, it's really just about pixel density, like how much color are we putting into the shadow versus the highlight versus the base color is how you blend those things together. And so these this chisel that I built here, this thing took a while for me to build. I knew the general angle here that you can see, like this L, right? It's basically an L, sidewise L like this. But I have it crooked at an angle, so you have that just like generic mountain, like that cartoonish mountain peak that we're using as our base language. But since it's on a spin brush, since we can rotate it, we can control the angle of that mountain line anywhere we want to be more or less steep. See, as we go through the effect, but I love it. Absolutely love it. There, too big a brush, Kearney. There you go. And as you get to lower ground, there's less chasms and ridges to to worry about. And then now that when we're working this in like this, now it becomes hill information, right? We can see how the sharpness of the mountain is drifting down into a more and more gentle, smoothed over landmass over time. Let's chop at that information a little bit. Keep breaking it up. There. And then we push up from the canvas into the hillside like that. We grab the snow and pull it down the mountain into the shadows here. Same thing over here. Just pull that down. Just like Bob, you can see endless episodes of Bob grabbing color information like this and just working it into the canvas. Just like that. Same thing, just different tools than what he uses. The same results. Now I'm just blending this in, and we'll I don't know how much of this we're going to end up covering up with other topography. I haven't gotten that far along the composition yet, but I know that the light source starts to cut off here, so this also can be in shadow down here, and there'll be less so on the back side. This shadow will be darker over here. Let me do that. Change this, and I can pull this down like that, and I can pull this like that. And I can lift up back into the canvas here. And this is at a point where I actually want to drop a little bit of snow across here, like that, so I can just feel it asking for just a little dusting. Just like that. And by going behind here and cutting out a little bit of a shadow like that here to separate this from there, it'll give it its own presence. Like that. Work that into the valley. Like that. Nope, I want to keep that. I want to keep that chop. So I'm going to drop back here. This is where we should be. Blending in back here. There. And break up that terrain there a little bit with just a 100% eraser. Just carving into it to create a little bit more language about where different pockets and deadfalls are at inside of this range here. And I can take this and there. Put that a little bit. Just like that. All right, so let's work the other side of this mountain. About like that. Do like that. pull at this and drag that down. Like that. There we go. Like that. There we go. I love how this stuff, and again, I'm lifting up a little bit. I try to soften that in. Holy crap. Now we'll come back through here with the shadow effect like that. There you go. Like that. Where am I at? Hi. There I am. Blend that in. That in like that. Pushing pixels. Lots of pushing. Lots of pixels. Keep falling off screen. What's up with that? Pull back. We've got a nice little mountain line. Let's go back to our reference images. Here. Let's do that. So that's our mountain ridge. Now we're going to create hills. We'll follow a similar process for the hills. Let's see if this is a good color. That's a horrible color. Too blue. This is not a good one. Get rid of you. How about that? Lots of greenage going on here. That's about what we want. The atmosphere is pulling a lot of blue into that. Maybe, ooh, I like that purplage. I like that purple. Very blue. Such bluage. Too much blue. That's more like what I want. Yeah, good. This has got good color. very good color. I might keep, yeah, I might be just keeping this one. That's what I want. You know, here that's going to be too dark. Maybe here it's going to be okay. Let's see. Here we're going to go back to our normal cloud brush for smudging, as I don't want, and I'm going to use a mid-level, like maybe 60%. That should be fine, and I can blend this down in like that. Here. Take that piece, I'm going to shrink that down a bit. Like that. I'm going to end up dropping the opacity on this whole layer. But I want to get the topography right before I drop it down to like, I'll come over here and I'll drop the opacity like this to fade that in. Like, that'll look really, really good when we're done with this. So, and that's about, yeah, about a 50%. So I just want to work these pixels down further into the canvas before we drop the opacity of the whole layer altogether. This is following the same rules as the mountains, just there's no snowy peaks. I wanted to have a greenishness to it because we're going to end up, as we fill this in, we're going to have glades and forest and stuff like this working forward on the campus until we hit this ridge line here, right? So we want to fill in all this color information here. So this is all pacing pretty much exactly where we expected it to be. Where are we at on time? All right, this is our last 20-minute block. So we're going to finish up this these back ridges here. Like this, I can actually use this here with that greenage to show how the mountains transition in elevation from snow into more temperate weather that won't sustain a snow line here. Work this in like that. Blend that down. Here, I want to avoid any really hard, like other than this ridge here. I don't want any real strong, sharp peaks because we're working with hills now. So I actually want to carve through and help distinguish this hill further forward and this one further back. We're going to keep pushing bottom up into this landmass here, like that. And this is the same brush that we use for our clouds, but instead of doing like a little swirly and XO effect like this, we're pushing up from the canvas, from the bottom up into the hill, and then we're going across, like we push up like this, and then we fade out by going like this, starting from the top down, and then we push up. It fades the information at the base. If I need to thicken it, I can pull from the top down. So I have that two directions, and since this is the light source, I want to grab and fade in like this to match the topography of the mass of the land, the hill, just like we did with the highlights and the shadows up in the actual mountain ranges. We want to use that same complementary angling of the brush. I'm kind of throwing a lot of words. I don't know if they're stringing together into cognitive sentences or not. Hopefully this shit's making sense. That. Fade like that. We'll fade this in here. Like that. And like that. And we should be ready. There. See, that fades in really, really nicely. Adds a lot of depth, which is appropriate for the far horizon here. And we're gonna have what the foreground is gonna be like around here, I think. Let's double check. No, down here. So we're gonna have a ridge effect here. We're gonna have a ridge effect here. So you got 1, 2, 3, and then foreground. So you got super far back, mid ground back, fairly close here, and then we got foreground. So bump, bump. We got two more bounces to get through here and here. So we'll have to add in more landmass here, and then another landmass in front of that. So we'll work this. We'll just keep working the terrain as we move forward in the piece. So I like where that's sitting. I'm going to go back here to the hills. I'm going to push this back up to 100%. Come back over here and do the same thing on this side. So lump, some lumps like that. Smooth it out a bit. Get rid of the toothiness of the brush that we're choosing to use. Hit it with an eraser a little bit to blend it down. Blend up. Smooth it in. The same thing we were doing on the other side, just now it's backwards because we're on the other side of the screen. Other side of the light source, but still the same. Still the same. I like that these little chunks down here. I don't want to necessarily get rid of those. I'll fade that up. And once we're done with this and we see where the actual water is sitting with this, we'll see if we need to pull any of these into a reflection down into the water. Right now, it doesn't look like we're going to need to. But that is something that may end up happening. Talking about things that could happen. Let's cut that out. Literally cut that there and go into here like that. That feels right. Cool, that's good. Break that up, push up, blend it in. Smooth it through by wiping across to have it work into the rest of the pixel, the reddish information in the background. There we go. But almost all of this is going to get covered over with with these trees here, right? That's all just going to disappear. But we know it's back there. We know it's back in there. So if there are any peek throughs of all the leaves and tree of the trees or the pines, the foliage. Thank you. If there's any breaks in the foliage that would allow us the opportunity to unexpectedly peek through and see this landscape back there, it's going to be there. And we have no idea what these trees are going to want to do when we build them. So they may want to have that look. And so we want to make sure the information is there for them to see. Because even though we might not be able to see it, these trees can. They want to have pretty things around them as well. There, feed that in. We should be looking pretty good. I'm going to cut that across like that. See, it's the same as the mountains, just a lot. It's just smoother, lower grades, and gentler slopes. And of course, the elevation is too low to support snow. So I went with this greenishness because we're going to have a lot of forest and fields and glades and stuff. So I wanted to go with a greenish sort of hill base to help reinforce the verdant terrain. There, faded in good. Now we'll take our opacity down to 50. That fades in like that. That fades in like that. That looks pretty damn good. So go over here and we can work on this a little bit more. Now that we know where we're at with our opacity, we can just blend that in. Bam, motherfucker. Mountain, hills, backdrop, complete. Now we're going to work further forward in the canvas. We have the sketch here, right? We have this. I don't know what that jut of land mass there is, but I don't think that's necessarily going to survive this experience. Let's check the references that we have right now. That's not a bad one right there. Cool. We're going to use that. We're going to call this back mass. Switch back to just a normal round brush. Boo. That's about our mid-range here. Using our same chalk brush, we're going to blend this into the back so that this line starts to blur out the separation. That's going to help feed into these hills that we have here to help blur the line, pardon the pun, of where these distant hills stop and this current mass begins. But we're going to want to maintain this edge here along the water. That's important. But we also want to make sure that it's going to feel like water's edge. That little sharp tip there is kind of inferring there's some sort of something going on up through here, which I love. So we start to have the idea of like a little river here, so we can use that. Get this inlet here, and I get that little line working. Like we can end up going something like that. That gets faded in, but that's just style and details at that point. Not sure how that's going to end up working. We don't have to know yet. This is just simply where we're at right now. I have no idea if there's going to be like a little inlet, like a little bay here or something, but I actually don't need to know that yet. I'm just scratching in the information right now. And since we're working on, since this is the mid-ground that's going to push into the foreground, this breaking line here is going to be the next defining ridge to separate this landmass in this fore mid-ground And then it's back mid-ground. So I can take this and just start to fade this into the water line here. I want to preserve that for some reason. My heart's just telling me to preserve that. So I can take the rest of this and I can work this into the canvas, just like we worked the mountain line into the canvas further back. We're using the same type of technique throughout all the different transition phases of perspective. You really want me to preserve that. Okay. So we're going to use a lower opacity brush, 40% strength smudge brush to, again, we're working away from the light source out to the edge of the canvas to blend this in. And I'm expecting to like drop a completely different, like a ridge like that over the top of this. So for now, this is plenty sufficient. But I want to work this into the environment so it's not, so that it can be superseded by whatever the next landmass is that we build. And this is all, I'm not really thinking about this much. I'm just kind of letting the brush intuit its way into where it wants to go and what it wants to build. This is my job to not obstruct the motion and to let the environment express itself however it wants through my brush. But this is, I've done I've done like 125 Bob Ross, like actual Bob Ross paintings, like duplicated them in Photoshop, and then I've probably done like another maybe 30 or 40 landscapes on my own. So pushing my way to 200. We'll get there eventually. Pull this back like that. So after you do enough of one type of composition or one sort of one flavor of, what am I trying to say? I've done a lot of these, so it becomes pretty instinctive, intuitive for me to be able to build these things out. I want to keep this water line here like that, but everything else beyond that just gets faded into the canvas. So we got about 4 minutes left. So that's about, we got 4 minutes left for the session today. So this is where we're going to end up at. Let's work that into the canvas. Really 20% strength, so this is going to blend in real smooth here into the canvas. I just want to have it just fade out. There. Come back through on this side. I'll work this stuff into the canvas as well. Again, I don't expect any of this portion here to survive into being seen by the camera, but again, we have to have all this information here in case something pokes through. See, it's like none of this stuff is gonna survive. But I want it in here because we want it in here. It's part of the process of building it. It adds to the world lore, and it makes us, as the composer of the image, just a little bit more aware of what the piece is doing, how it's expressing itself. It's just good background information, like literally background. But it's information. It provides a, here I can pull this. I need a stronger brush here. 40%? 40%, thank you. Start working that into the canvas. So we're supposed to be done with this piece in, by August. It is the 8th. So let's pull up on our calendar here. I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 more weekends like this to finish out this piece. And currently we're doing really, really good. That means we're going to have, let me cut through the shit here. Good. Better. There. Blend. Blend, bitches. Thank you. Blend. Purple to red to green, perfect. All right, we're officially done for the day. Technically done, I guess. And, well, I mean, we're not technically done because we're still working. Spiritually, we're done for today. Pull that in and sweep across into the corners here to blend it out. Again, just want to up the brush here to blend this in, blend that out. There. Nice. Okay, so what will happen is when we come back, we have basically from this line here up to here, like this block here is all we have to really worry about next week. This will be our mid background, and then we'll have another layer that's here. It's going to be our get rid of that, and then we'll have right. We'll have from here to here will be our mid foreground. And then we'll have our actual foreground. See? So we're right on pace. 2-hour session here, or like 100 minutes here, 100 minutes here, and then maybe like 100, maybe 2 hours or so here. And that should finish up the piece. If I find myself crunched here, like I should be working on trees and stuff on like foreground trees on the 29th. If I find that to be true, if I don't get myself done on the 29th, when we come back, I can then spend Monday the 31st, instead of doing Eberron cartography or character art on Monday the 31st, we can instead spend Monday night finishing up the tree details here to complete this piece before August 1st. So we have a backup plan in case 3 weekends from now we aren't able to clip it through. We have potentially 4 sessions, but I want to try to resolve it in 3. We'll see how that is, because we may have some trickiness working the transition from distant hills through tree copse, forest, and glades here until we hit this line. We're going to have a lot more color. We'll have more detailed information here. So this is just going to be... Anyway, we'll get into it. So, but that's where we're at for now. I am really, really pleased with how this piece is coming along. I certainly hope that you've enjoyed the session. This is the type of stuff that I do. So if you want to see more of this in the future, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you can get notifications when I'm live here on YouTube in the future. I publish on, I always provide notification that I'm live on Twitter at Phil Kearney, so you're welcome to hit there. And if you know where I lurk on the Discords, you are always welcome to drop me a hey, reach out, say hey, what up. So, but that's it for now, guys. We be done, and really enjoying this work. I haven't done landscape in 9 months, so this feels really, really good. Yeah, I'll see you guys. I'll be back. Oh yeah, I'll be back on Monday morning to continue Spelljammer page art. And then Monday night, we'll be back doing more Eberron, probably more character. I don't know if we'll be doing cartography on Monday or not. Either cartography or character sketches for Eberron. So stick around. I'll see you guys on the other side. Thanks a lot for being here. Laters.